I have very high ceilings in my apartment, like extremely high ceilings. So it's like 9 feet up the ground, and she has no way she can like climb up, because like cats can like climb, like legit climb and not just jump. But she can't climb down. So she sits there and cries.
Is it that does she like the idea of you bringing her back down? Like, is that it?
I don't know what it is, because she's kind of like a bush cat. She doesn't like being too high up all the time. Mm-hmm. But there's something, I don't know, there's something about those shelves that there's even a bunch of boxes on top. So she has like nowhere to sit. So when she does sit, she just crushes herself like behind these boxes. And I'm like, this can't be comfy.
and then just complains the whole time.
And then just cries. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not even whining, but full on baby crying. Like I've done something wrong. So I can't reach her when she gets up there, obviously, because I'm not 9. I don't know if you knew this, but I'm not 9 feet tall. I'm 5'7".
I did not know you weren't 9 feet tall. But how do you do it? How do you get her then? Call the fire department.
Every time I call the fire. No, I have to. It's kind of cute, actually. I have to hold her bed up as high as I can, and she jumps into the bed.
You lower it down.
And then I lower it down. Yep. I want to like crawl up on the shelf and cry at her and see what she thinks.
She holds your bed up and you're like, what? Roses.
Hi.
It's out.
What?
We're living in the moment when now it is finally... Okay. Everybody, just so you know, we're recording on Friday, April 19th.
That's true.
And there's a media event that just took place. Everybody was waiting for this one media property to come out. Everybody was waiting with bated breath. They were worried that it would be so popular it might shut down the internet services which people use to play it.
Is this about The Bachelor again?
This is not about The Bachelor. Do you not know what this thing is? It's all anyone's talking about on Twitter.
The Married at First Sight reunion came out this morning. I watched that.
Well, that's not it.
That's not it. What is it? Should I go on Twitter? Should I see what's trending? Will that help?
Yeah, go ahead. You'll see it. Don't say it out loud. I want us to say it at the same time. So as soon as you think you've got it, you tell me. But it's a massive media event. Basically, the whole world was looking forward to this. And it just came out this week.
Well, okay. Maybe.
Do you think you know what it is?
Nope. It could be a couple things, but we're gonna go for it. Are you ready?
It's a major piece of work that was just finally released, and people are going nuts about it.
Okay, I'm ready.
Dissecting it, talking about it, talking in fan communities. All right, we'll say it at the same time. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
3D
Harold Halibut.
Mario. Wait, what? Wait, what did you say?
Harold Halibut. Obviously, everybody's talking about Harold Halibut.
What about 3D Mario?
I have no idea what that is. Is that
Sir,
some sort of...
Harold Halibut is not even trending.
Oh, is 3D Mario the name of that new Taylor Swift album? Is that what it is?
She's going really pop culture these days. Also, just FYI, Little Big Planet is also trending.
How many times have you listened to the new Taylor Swift?
I haven't. Now that you bring it up, is there a new
the big media event that everybody is talking about. Obviously, the one that everybody was waiting for, the one that people are going crazy for, the one they thought would shut down streaming services is Harold Halibut. But also there's a new Taylor Swift album.
Oh, I didn't know either of those.
Okay. Well.
But I went on trending and I saw 3D Mario and I went for it.
Again, I think that's the name of the new Taylor Swift album, 3D Mario.
3D Mario.
The first track on her album is called Fortnite. It's like
Fortnite.
And you know, if you asked her, she'd be like, "Oh, I didn't realize that was the name of a game." Like, you know,
I didn't know. That was just based on a relationship I had several years ago. I'm not going to name names.
It lasted for about 2 weeks, so I wanted to do a song about it, and so I named it You know, when your title, when your number one track is Fortnite in 2024, what that's going to evoke. You can't pretend, Taylor Swift.
That's so funny.
Anyway, this is a Save Your Game. Everybody, welcome to the show. I'm Matt Ocamp.
I'm Pushing Up Roses. Hi.
I actually did play some Harold Halibut, but
did you?
Just today, yeah.
I'm gonna look this up right now. Why is it not working? Come on, Harold Halibut.
It's the graphics. It's all claymation, and the graphics look incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I only played it for like 15 minutes, and mostly it was just walking around very slowly through very empty environments that looked, again, gorgeous. But I'm sure I'll have more to say about it next week.
Yeah, let's give it a shot. I'm gonna put on my radar for hopefully next week. Mm-hmm. That'll be in my playing thing because I actually love claymation. I know a lot of people find it kind of frightening. I actually really enjoy it.
It's a little, and it's also like a little. The voice acting is really good, and also a little bit. There's a lot of space in the audio, and it's like kind of quiet. Like the performances are sort of lower key, so it in that way reminds me a bit of like Wallace and Gromit.
Sure. I think even just inherently, it's probably
because of the clay, yeah. And the British accents.
Are you saying it's slow paced right now?
Seems to be, yeah.
Okay.
And also, it seems like there's an incredible amount of writing. There's all these parts. Again, I'm only like 15 minutes in, but there's parts where I have walked past 2 NPCs chatting.
Yeah.
And I just stood there for like 2 minutes. And they never repeated dialogue.
That's cool.
Holy cow! How much writing is in this game? So I think it'll be interesting. If already it might be a little bit boring, but we'll find out. So, what have you been playing?
Well, according to you. So what you guys don't know is that to keep this podcast structured, we have a very organized Google document where we lay out what we've been playing and what we're going to talk about. And if we have a special guest, we're very professional over here.
And Roses has been playing all sorts of crazy stuff, and she's going to tell you all about them now.
I didn't even know, but apparently I was playing Police Quest, Leisure Suit. I love it's one of my favorites.
The thing is that you love these games.
I love these. Leisure Suit Larry, Magna Cum Laude, a classic.
That's the 3D one, right?
Yeah, that's the 3D classic Larry. And Plumbers Wear Ties, which I don't even own. So that's really impressive that I have somehow on this document list that I have played all these games.
I do think that's impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because they're so bad. Like, how did I even sit through them, you might wonder.
What did you think about all of them?
I have thoughts on Police Quest, and that nearly people were mad at me. So I haven't. Interestingly, I have been working so hard this week. I haven't played much. Well, I actually played the game that we're going to talk about, maybe a little too much than I should have, and then maybe I would have had more time, but I didn't. I just kept playing the game that we're going to talk about. But I have thoughts on Police Quest. I'm going to use this time to say that my Police Quest review is very controversial to some people on the internet. I said how much I didn't like it. I said that it was
racist.
I did. I said it was a little racist. I said it was kind of the white guy's power fantasy. It to me, and I think I was pretty nice about it. I just said like it was clear to me that this is kind of Jim Walls's almost like fantasy, and that there's nothing inherently wrong with that. It can just go bad very quickly if you're not if you're putting racism in your game, even if by accident, even if you think you're doing the right thing, you know, intentions don't really matter if the consequences bleh. So, but even beyond that stuff, right? This just came up actually. Somebody was talking about Police Quest. It might have been Ashens. I was in his chat on his stream. And he brought up the infamous, because nobody can forget about this, the bomb puzzle with the car. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yes.
if you whenever you get in your car in Police Quest, you have to walk around the entire car. You have to like circumnavigate the car.
And keep in mind, we're not saying you have to type look. You have to physically have your character walk around the car.
Walk your character around the car, around the entirety of the car. And if you do, your character says, you know, oh, everything looks fine, gets in the car, and you drive away. It's perfectly fine. If you don't, magically, a bomb appears in your car, and you explode and die. Because apparently Jim Walls was like, oh yeah, here's the thing. We always have to check our police cars because people are always putting bombs on them.
Just so ridiculous. You know, yeah. I would have been maybe even more forgiving if it was randomized. Like maybe one day there is one and you did have to look that day. But it's not. It's either or. You know what I mean? It's either you check and there's nothing there, or if you don't check, you are dead. And that is how this game works.
Yeah.
So like say what you will about my opinion on like the moral stuff. This game sucks anyway, okay? I'm sorry. This game sucks.
I can't imagine many cops die, and many cops in the US anyway, I think probably anywhere, die from their car being bombed while they're like inside the station.
Like in the station. Yeah, this is in the station.
Yeah. So you've been playing a lot of Police Quest.
I've been playing a lot of Police Quest, and yeah, what have you been playing, Matt?
So I've been playing the Thaumaturge. It is about it's like this is early 20th century Poland, like before the Bolshevik Revolution, at the beginning of sort of like the workers' unrest in the nation. You play a Thaumaturge. You play kind of like a magic wizardy detective-y kind of guy who you collect basically demons that help you have some like kind of vague magical powers.
It's like Pokemon.
Well, it's very, very, very unlike Pokemon.
Okay, my bad. Continue.
You know what? It's actually very much like Disco Elysium. If any of the listeners have played that game, it's the same sort of top-down isometric 3D graphics, very beautiful, but kind of dark, and a lot of reading, like kind of like a visual novel level of reading. Basically, you're exploring this alternate version of Poland from the early 19th century. You're friends with Rasputin.
Great.
The historical figure Rasputin. And yeah, basically your father dies, who is also a famous thaumaturge who you had disagreements with. You're returning to Warsaw, which right now is no longer Warsaw, Poland. It is Warsaw, USSR, right? Or Warsaw, Russia. I guess it's pre-USSR, because Russia has already taken Poland. And there's a lot of like political upheaval and political unrest going on as you are dealing with the fallout from your father's death. There is turn-based combat in this game,
Mm-hmm.
which is actually kind of a bummer because honestly, I don't think it adds to the game.
Would you have rather it been real time?
I don't think the combat adds at all.
Oh, you don't think so? It's like Quest for Glory. You don't think there should be combat because
You
that's
know,
my hot take.
the game the game is sort of like like Quest for Glory. It's trying to go for like a tabletop RPG. It's like trying to
Mhm.
replicate a tabletop RPG, right?
Mhm.
And as such, it gives you encounters, and some of these encounters can be solved non-violently or through like clever means, but there's a lot of forced combat where you cannot resolve
Right.
it through non-violent means. You have to fight these guys, and so just every now and then you're visiting a new place, or you're on your way to complete a quest objective, and suddenly you're in a combat.
Yeah.
And the combat, again, they don't really add much.
It's too bad because it kind of sounds a little. I mean, it sounds like a JRPG. It sounds like Final Fantasy, where you're hitting these little areas, and sometimes you can run, and sometimes you have to fight.
Right, these aren't
But honestly, I liked that. I liked that in Final Fantasy. I thought it
well,
was kind of fun.
there's no random encounters. These encounters are
Okay.
scripted.
Oh, okay.
Yes. The strength of the game is in talking to characters and investigating these little mysteries that you come across. You have one of your Thaumaturge powers. Not only can you influence people, which sometimes affects dialogue trees, you also, at any point, you can kind of like tap your grimoire. It makes this really cool echoey snapping sound, and
Mhm.
it highlights things in the area that you otherwise maybe couldn't have seen.
Okay.
So like you're kind of like, you get these red sparkly things that sort of hone in on a specific spot, and then when you walk up to them and click your little snap button, they come together and you can examine that thing. And then when you
Okay.
have a certain amount of clues, he sort of puts together all the pieces in his mind and then gives you some sort of insight, which you can then use
Okay.
to have new interactions with other characters.
I like that mechanic.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The way it's written and these adventure game mechanics are really, really cool and really smart. And again, very Disco Elysium like,
Mhm.
as well as, the story clearly branches. You're making choices at various times that have major consequences.
Yeah.
And there was one situation where it was even like, I saved and then I made two different choices just to kind of see how much it branched. And the
Yeah.
next scene, in one situation, I just kind of kept going with my life. In the other situation, I was in jail and I had to find my way out of jail. So
Nice.
so there's big changes depending on your actions.
So this is
And
a big game. Are you saying this is like a kind of like a traditional RPG where you're going to dump out like hours and hours into it?
so as far as an RPG, it's short. So it's like, as
Okay.
far like for an RPG, it's short. For an adventure game, it's long. Supposedly it's about 25 hours.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with that assessment then. That's a
Yeah.
short RPG and it's a long adventure game.
Right. I'm only how long am I in? I'm about 10 hours in right
Okay.
now. And it's really, again, it's really well written. It's really smart. It's a little dour, where Disco Elysium had a lot of humor and a lot of wackiness. This game has a lot of somber energy
Yeah.
and dark kind of gothic energy,
I like that.
but I'm really enjoying it so far. I'm gonna keep playing, and I think we'll be talking about it on the show again at some point. Do you want to talk about, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about one of my new personal favorites, Return to Monkey Island, upon request from our viewers. I was going to say from our reviewers. We might have reviewers. I don't know if they request stuff, but from our
I
viewers.
also hope we don't have viewers.
Well, that'd be strange.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm sitting in my house right now with no camera on me, so it would be very strange if I had a viewer all of a sudden.
Yeah, that'd be terrifying. Like if somebody
Mhm.
just came up to my window and saw me in my Cookie Monster pants because I
I was
couldn't
just like,
find a
hey,
pair of pants today.
I'm just a viewer. Don't worry about me.
They can't even hear us because the window's closed. We're just literally viewing. What I meant to say is listener recommendation. Return to Monkey Island, which is the newest Monkey Island game in the series.
Hell yeah. I'm stoked to talk about it.
All right, I am going to go take a bathroom break, and then we'll come back and we will
I'm going to
into
go
that.
take a bath, and then we'll be right back.
Okay.
Roses.
Yes, Matt.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
How was the bathroom?
Are you calling me out? Matt Ockham, are you calling me out? So yeah, I might have called it a bathroom break. Did I go to the bathroom? No, I lied.
Wow, what did you do?
I sat here and looked at my cat.
Cool.
Cool.
Did your cat climb the shelf yet?
No, luckily she's still asleep in her little pink bed. She's so cute. How was your bath?
It was good. You know, I feel like I'm bringing a sleepy energy to the show today. And I think a bath is just the thing to kind
make
of,
you sleepier?
Yeah, it's lean into it. Yeah, not to wake me up, but to lean into it. So now I'm even sleeper.
You need to like process your feelings, sit with your feelings, even though we are recording. This
is just the chill episode where I get to.
Oh dear!
I'm gonna bring this microphone into the bath, and I'm just gonna splosh around. While
that
we
sounds great.
Hey,
future episode, save your game from the bathtub.
Next time we have a milestone when we hit episode 50. We'll both bring our recording stuff into the bath in our individual bathrooms, and we will record from the bath.
And I'll light like candles. I will get a dinner with a little table, possibly a bathtub pillow. Those are a thing, you know. And then we'll just both fall asleep. We'll be like so comfy that that's the end of it.
And then we'll wake up and start talking about adventure games again, and we'll release the whole episode with the whole time that we fell asleep in there.
I'm definitely gonna put ads on that. Just like... Man, no one would watch watch. I keep acting as though people are watching us. They're not.
Plenty of people would watch, but not many people would listen.
All perverts out there. How dare you?
Yeah.
Dare you? Just for that, I'm wearing a bathing suit in the bathtub.
All right. What do you want to talk about Monkey Island with me, Roses?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, I do. I will talk about this with anybody. Especially if you know me in real life. One of my icebreakers is talking about Monkey Island because that sounds weird, probably, but even when you're not a gamer or even an adventure gamer, it seems to me that people of our generation know what Monkey Island is. They're familiar with the franchise. A lot of my friends who are not gamers have played Monkey Island. It just seems to be in that certain age group. People have a lot of nostalgia for it. So much to our surprise, we were shocked when a new Monkey Island came out just a few years ago.
Well, do you want to give a very brief history on the franchise before this announcement was made?
Sure. Or people can just go watch my videos. But no, that's fine. No, that's fine. I'll repeat myself. It's fine. I love doing that. So, Monkey Island is a series developed by what was then called Lucasfilms. It is called LucasArts now. And when did it start? Like 80, I'm going to guess and see if I'm right, okay?
Uh-huh. All right.
87 for Secret. Am I right?
No.
That's got to be wrong.
Yes, that is.
Wait. Give me a second chance.
Okay.
90.
It is 1990, yes.
Yes! See, I knew I was wrong right away with 87. I'm like, well, no, that's like, it's King's Quest 3 or something. That's not Space.
That's when everything still looked like advanced Atari.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, oh no, that's wrong. That's wrong. Yeah. It's got to be 90. So yeah, The Secret of Monkey Island came out in 1990 by Lucasfilms. It was It is an adventure game. How do I describe Monkey
Yeah,
Island?
it's just it's a funny. I don't know if you'd call it a comedy game specifically, but it is a funny, adventurous point and click graphic adventure. It follows a naive little wannabe pirate who arrives at a place called Melee Island, and that's his whole thing. He wants to be a pirate.
He just wants to be a pirate. Yep.
And then he wants to find the secret of Monkey Island, and in his way is a ghost pirate named LeChuck.
And then later, a zombie pirate, and then later, a ghost zombie pirate, and we're not even sure what he is at this point.
He's also demon pirate. In Curse, he was a demon pirate.
I thought he was zombie pirate. Oh, but that demon makes sense, though.
Yeah, he had a fiery beard.
Head, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess the second installment of Monkey Island came out in 1991. So pretty
it was really that quick, was it?
Yeah, and then
I feel like that's not common these days.
The third game sort of strayed from the traditional pixel art. And
wait, let me guess. Yeah. Let me guess. I want to see if I can remember this. I covered all these games. I'm going to guess 1997.
1997 is when Curse of Monkey Island came out. And that was, I think, Secret of Monkey Island was my first adventure game that I ever played. Curse of Monkey Island was maybe my first, favorite video. Yeah. The first time I was like, this is my favorite video game.
Oh, yeah. I'm still very enchanted with Curse of Monkey Island. It's one of my favorite games ever in the world.
Then a very poorly received fourth game came out.
I'm going to guess 2000?
Yes, it was 2000. It was called Escape from Monkey Island. It was in 3D. It was a little clunky. It didn't really have the tone of the first three games. It was just again a completely different creative team. And
did I like it anyway? Yes.
For some reason.
I really did. I really did like it.
Then when Telltale in the mid 2000s was revisiting a lot of these, or in the late 2000s, was revisiting a lot of these old adventure game properties and making new editions of them with their Telltale engine. If you don't know Monkey Island, then you're probably a novice to adventure games. So
sure, yeah.
Maybe the Telltale made the Fables game. The Walking Dead games, and what was the Fables game called?
It's The Wolf Among Us. Wolf Among Us,
yes. Based on the comic book Fables.
Okay. Yeah, they did a Jurassic Park game that had varying degrees of success. They did the Strong Bad game. And they
Batman game that people loved, and then a Guardians of the Galaxy game that nobody liked.
I didn't even know that existed. And of course, speaking of LucasArts, they did some of the Sam & Max games, which we talked about in our Sam & Max episode a few episodes back.
And then they did Tales of Monkey Island. Once again, a lot of people didn't really, a lot of people kind of considered the first three games the games. Escape from Monkey Island was sort of an add-on that a couple people liked and most people didn't. But even if you liked it, it didn't really feel like it was part of the series.
I think it does. Okay, I'm gonna disagree with you. To me, it does feel like it's a part of it, and Tales does not feel like it's a part of it. But that's just me.
I disagree entirely. I think Escape from Monkey Island does not feel like the same sort of jokes. It doesn't feel like the characters don't have the same personalities. It doesn't look the same. It doesn't feel the same in it. The puzzles aren't similar. It just feels different in a lot of ways. But I think Tales of Monkey Island, while feels a little bit more like any other Telltale game, so it's like the feel still isn't right. I actually think Tales of Monkey Island gets a little closer back to the sense of humor and the characterizations of the earlier games. So then the franchise was quiet for 13 years.
Well, it was acquired by Disney, right? Well, LucasArts.
So LucasArts was acquired by Disney. So some people started wondering aloud, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe there's hope. And most people's responses to that was like, come on, stop
Yeah.
dreaming.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then entirely in secret, adventure game company Terrible Toy Box, which is run by Ron Gilbert, who was the creator of the first 2 Monkey Island games. Ron Gilbert got the band back together.
Yeah. In total secret. I can't that, which was kind of amazing, because you're telling me there's a game ready to be played soon? Like it's beyond, right? Like it's beyond development, that you have a date and it's soon. That is the coolest thing. I just love that. I love that a game company did that.
It was so cool. Yeah, it was announced in oh man, I gotta find this out. We gotta nail this down, because
let me see what the date was.
It was
here.
The two were so close to each other. It was announced in May 2022, and then was released in September 2022.
Yeah, see, so it was like ready to go. It was ready to go.
So that was wild. And when it was announced, obviously everyone was super stoked. And then they started showing screenshots from it. And the internet sort of broke into 2 different camps. Do you want to explain this?
Yeah. So, the trailer came out, and I would describe this new style that they're doing as more cartoony than nothing but stylized. This is a highly stylized game. It is not pixel art like a lot of indie adventure games choose to do. And the internet was at odds with each other. Some people, without even really, I mean, I can say this for certain, without playing the game, said they hated it, that they hate the artistic style. They're basically not going to play it. Other people, and I think a lot of people, I would say a lot of people more than the haters, were very excited to have a new Monkey Island, on the scene. But there was a very loud group of people basically harassing Ron Gilbert off the internet because of the art style, which is so mind-boggling to me. Because Matt and I, we've been playing adventure games since we were young, and we've seen franchises go through every style that they can possibly go through. The King's Quest games, they started out pixel art, they ended in 3D. Not the best decision, but what can you do? They evolve. Things change. We watched even like Gabriel. Look at Gabriel Knight. Pixel art to FMV live acted to 3D. So this is not new. This is not a new thing that adventure games have done.
And then returned to its original style, but removed the pixels.
Yeah.
Yeah, like did, rendered smooth art.
Very
which
smooth,
is how this is the thing that gets me here, is a lot of people talked about this as if, so the art style, very cartoony, very geometric, a lot of exaggerated shapes and lines.
It can be painterly too with its colors. I think it's a great style. I really like it.
If you've ever played the game Jenny LeClue,
Oh,
that is the art style that this reminds me of.
I agree.
So when a lot of people were calling Ron Gilbert like a sellout, and like, how dare he release a new Monkey Island without doing pixel art? And what people miss, and again, this is the same as when they remastered Gabriel Knight, and got rid of all the pixels, right? This is, the pixel art wasn't like a statement in the 1980s and 1990s.
It's what they had to do. This is what they were working with.
That's all they had, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, oh, these are guys who love pixel art. These are guys who are working with the tools they have. So the remake of Gabriel Knight happened because that is how they pictured it in their heads when they were drawing it, and it just had pixels when they had to put it in a computer to render it in that era.
I understand the nostalgia, the feels towards pixel art. I get it's become its own style today. It's become its own thing, for sure. But I think people need to realize that the best thing about the Monkey Island games, maybe with the exception of Curse, is not the graphics. It is just not. It's just not. That's the last thing. I actually think this is
I
going to be a
wouldn't.
very
Yeah.
controversial
Okay.
statement.
Yeah.
I think Secret of Monkey Island is not the best looking game.
See,
When I played it when I was young, I was like,
yeah,
okay.
I would disagree. I don't think the graphics are the last thing. I love the graphics of early Monkey Island. I have a Secret of Monkey Island print hanging in my
Aw.
in my living room. I really love those graphics, but
Yeah, I want to be clear. I'm not saying they're nothing, but because I love the franchise as a whole, I'm not sure it matters to me which graphic style they go to as long as it's a Monkey Island game.
right, the people who made Monkey Island are not. They weren't again. They weren't pixel art enthusiasts. They were pixel artists because that's how you became a computer game artist, is learning
Yeah.
pixel art because that's all they had.
Yeah.
If you want pixel art these days, there are plenty of people who are pixel art enthusiasts, and there's plenty of games that are made with pixel art because the creators thought their games looked best in pixel art.
Yeah. We have the choice now. We have that
Yeah.
choice of like, what style do we want to replicate?
So that doesn't mean that all adventure games should be pixel art by default. That's crazy. And there's just a lot of people I don't think that understood that. And then there was because they were grumpy, they would say insane things like, "Oh, this art is lazy," which absolutely not. They'd say, "Oh, this art looks like a child made it," which absolutely not. Right?
Oh
They'd
man,
say,
if children can make that, like, go for it. I'm very highly impressed.
it's just, yeah, the way people said like, "Oh, this art looks like you could do it in 2 minutes." Like these things are absolutely unhinged things to say. That
Yeah.
it's there's no understanding of how art is made by
Yeah.
any person who says stuff like that.
It's just petulant. It's just so
Yes.
petulant to me. I don't and keep in mind, you are allowed to not like a certain type of art. I
Of
get it.
course.
I'm an artist. I work in visual arts and I get that. And there are some styles I don't like, and that's fine. But we're talking about people haven't even played the game yet. They're just there's literally a trailer and
Yeah.
this just petulant thing was happening.
And yeah, people who are saying, again, wild things that are just untrue, right?
Yeah.
That this art is easy or whatever. And other people saying things like, "Oh, this doesn't fit Monkey Island." That's where it's like, you haven't played the game yet.
Yeah.
If you haven't played the game, then you can't tell me it doesn't fit the style of the game, because
Right.
neither of us know what's gonna be in the game.
Like, I'm gonna be like totally candid with you. When I saw the trailer, I was a little like, I was so excited. First of all, first feeling was excitement. Second feeling was being unsure of the art style and how I would connect it to what I already know and what I already love about Monkey
Right.
Island. But that being said, I was never against it. I never thought it looked bad. And obviously, you have to play the game to see if it does fit. You know how trailers are. Trailers are
Right.
misleading a lot of the time,
It definitely took a second of adjustment, but I don't think there was ever a point where I was thinking, I don't know if this is right. Like that never
Right.
really crossed my mind. But there was a moment where I was like, "Oh, this is new."
Yeah. And even like upon replaying it, because I replayed it a lot for today, I liked it even more.
Right.
There wasn't even a little part of me that needed to adjust. I just
Right.
really, this is Return to Monkey Island. This is what this game is. I like it. And yeah, I really like the artistic style. In fact, I actually think it suits Monkey Island perfectly.
Me too.
The same way I think Curse's cartoony graphics fit that game perfectly and fit Monkey Island perfectly. It just, I just really, I'm very charmed by it. I really like it.
Yeah, nothing about Return to Monkey Island feels incongruous to me. There's never a moment where I'm playing and I'm thinking like, "Oh, this soundtrack or this art style or like doesn't fit," right? It
Yeah.
To me, and I guess we should start getting into talking about the actual game now, because to me,
Yeah.
this game is a little gem of an entity, right? Like, I think every piece of it works together really well, and it really holds together as a piece of art.
Yeah, I do too. Look, guys. I
Look,
think
listen.
listen. I think we can all agree that sometimes when our beloved game developers of the past, sometimes when they try to come back, it's not always smooth sailing.
No.
And that makes sense. You do isn't it's this is an art form, so you do lose momentum. If I stop painting for 10 years, I will lose momentum and I might produce something that's not as good as my previous stuff. And we've seen that happen with some of our beloved game devs of the past and of the recent past.
Of
So
it,
I
yes.
go ahead.
If Ron Gilbert is part of, say, a triumvirate of 3 creators who built the adventure game genre from the ground up, one might say, all 3 of them came back in the same year, and only one of them made a good game.
Yeah. And that was shocking to me. I mean, I guess
Mhm.
like we had a little. I mean, we had Thimbleweed Park from Terrible Toy Box before that, so I knew that Ron Gilbert uh, could still make adventure games. Clearly, he
Right.
had the Cave before that, which is fine. But when you're dealing with a franchise that hasn't had an installment in a very long time, you kind of wonder what they're going to do with it. And we have to keep in mind that Ron Gilbert only worked on the first and second game. It was a
Mhm.
new creative team for Curse, and I was wondering personally what he was going to do with that.
Now,
And to my
yeah,
pleasant surprise, he used that. Murray is back in this game, the demonic and talking skull.
he used
He
all of
refer
it,
even even Escape. He
and
references
Tails.
and Tails, yeah,
He references every game as if they're all part of the same canonical universe and then part of the story of one character and one world, and which would be hard to do for somebody who is clearly bitter about his you know his creative work being taken from
yeah,
him and given to other
absolutely.
people. And I now
Do you even?
Curse.
I don't know how if people
Mhm.
know how difficult that would be, like as an artist, to give away your baby and then see it go in and it's hard. You don't want to be bitter about it because it's art, and Curse especially is
And to
so
see everybody
beloved.
hate one of the installments that you had nothing to do with,
Yeah.
to be like, well, man, not only did I lose it, it went into the wrong hands.
Yeah, gee, I want you guys to really sit on that because
Mhm.
it must be so difficult, you know?
So I think Curse had some of the same talent. Just did not have Ron Gilbert.
Right.
So Curse had some continuity
Yeah.
in the creative team, but yeah, then Escape had, I think, like nobody. um,
Yeah, it might have been. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was maybe entirely a new creative team.
and I might be a little wrong about some of this. Feel free to send us emails, I guess, if you want. Whatever.
Don't
But
yell at us though.
yeah, be nice. Thinking of that, all the disappointment that Ron Gilbert must have had, and how weird it is to come back to basically a dead franchise
Mm,
and be competing with all the expectations and people's memories and people's nostalgia. The most brilliant thing about Return to Monkey Island, and we'll start talking about the game now, is Ron Gilbert put all of that into the game.
yeah.
The entire story of this game is about that experience.
Right. While having its own identity, I want to be
Mhm,
clear that this is not a reboot or like a rehash or a
mhm.
reimagining. This is a new Monkey Island game. It's a continuation. I think it's fair to call it a
And
continuation, right?
right, yes. And even
Okay.
if you don't know anything about the Monkey Island games, it's still a piece of work about what it feels like to compete with nostalgia,
Yeah.
and what it feels like to return to your like the glories of your youth as an older person.
Yeah. It's It's really impressive. Honestly, I thought that I love Ron Gilbert. I think he's a good guy and a good developer, very smart. I thought he would be a little more bitter and inclined to, I guess I felt he was inclined to keep with 1 and 2. The Monkey Islands that he worked on. But to my very pleasant surprise, is very refreshing, he gave love to all the games. And I think that's one of the best things about this game, that there's nothing bitter about it.
There is criticism though, I think. And
Sure.
there is love and there is sorrow.
Yeah.
And he made something that is just incredibly thoughtful from every angle. And it pushes in these like literary boundaries in the space of like, again, in the medium again of like a silly cartoony point and click adventure game.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you want to give everybody a quick like overview of the premise and the plot of this game?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if they need to know anything. I don't think so, because we kind of gave it a rundown.
Yeah,
but you
I
are
think
playing Guybrush Threepwood.
There's one bit of context I think they need to know, which is that there's a odd scene at the end of the second Monkey Island game that
Oh God.
was basically a cliffhanger that nobody understood or knew what it was about. And the cliffhanger was basically that it seemed as if all of Monkey Islands 1 and 2 were just two little boys playing in the,
carnival. It's like a carnival, right?
Like the
or amusement park.
Yeah, and like the back rooms of a carnival, like the staff only area of a carnival, like of an amusement park. That's how the second game ended, and so I think that's the last
controversial ending. Not everyone is on board with that kind of Ron Gilbert meta storytelling. And I think even following that is the third game does not it doesn't humor that idea. It continues Monkey Island as though there is a Monkey Island, there is a secret of Monkey Island, and that's how it is that's what we're searching for, Big Whoop in Curse of Monkey Island. But all of it is real, and you can assume the same thing for Escape and Tales. So Return starts with two little boys that are similar looking to the little boys in LeChuck's Revenge. We've got one kind of burly little boy playing LeChuck and one Guybrush Threepwood looking kid playing Guybrush. We're coming out of, I think it's safe to say that those characters were continuing from that back room of the carnival setting from LeChuck's Revenge. Would you agree?
I think we are seeing the exact scene that Monkey Island 2 ended.
Yeah, I think so too. And so, these little kids are done. They're farting around. They're being little kids. And this is the tutorial part, by the way, you guys. You're playing, as we come to learn, we're playing Guybrush Threepwood's little boy. And
you kind of think you're playing Guybrush Threepwood as a little boy.
Yeah.
Until you sort of exit the park and there's Guybrush Threepwood.
Yeah.
Older, graying at the temples, sitting on a park bench, and he's like, "Hey, did you boys have fun?" And it's Dominic Armato's voice, the same voice actor that's done it since Curse, and it feels like a warm cup of cocoa, right? It really
does.
It just washes over you, and you feel like you're right back there.
I was overwhelmed, to be honest, and I know that sounds insane to just be overwhelmed by this video game, but it's powerful. These characters and these games and stories, beyond nostalgia, which can be argued as more of a shallow feeling, it just brings you back in a place in your life, whether it be good or bad. It just brings you somewhere, and
I think this is meant
stoked.
to. Yeah. I think that moment is meant to evoke that, because again, you kind of think you're playing a young Guybrush Threepwood at this moment.
Yeah.
And you don't know what the rest of the game is going to be. You don't know if you're going to be playing as young Guybrush Threepwood.
Right.
And you have two little kids with two obnoxious little kids' voices yelling and running around and being
it kind of tricked us, didn't it? Because that's not what we wanted. Right away, it's like, whoa, I don't know about that,
And then And then suddenly, yeah, so at the same moment that you are realizing, okay, this is not what, like, Guybrush Threepwood exists and is here and is
Yeah.
dressed in his old pirate garb. You also are realizing, oh, this is his son.
Hmm.
And in a direct contrast to the like to the like obnoxious shrieky little kid voices, there's just this smooth and very understated. He's just like, "Hey, did you guys have fun at the park?"
That's how that's one of my favorite things
Yeah,
about Guybrush is his timbre and cadence and how he speaks. It's one of my favorite things ever.
right. I think it's just meant to give you this like, yeah, this feeling of chills.
Yeah.
Like this sinking into a warm bath feeling.
Yeah. And at one point, I did realize I was like playing a tutorial, and I thought, well, it's going to change. I don't think it's going
Right.
to stay in these two kids' perspective. And then it does. You find eventually you get through that part. We'll call it the tutorial, and you meet Guybrush, your dad, and he is going to tell you and us, the player, a story. And that's when we start playing as Guybrush. He's going to tell us the true story of the secret of Monkey Island and going back to find the secret. And LeChuck is back on his bullshit, and he still is obsessed with Elaine, even though Elaine does not give two shits about LeChuck.
And this is where the thing starts to get interesting, and also starts commenting about the past, because Guybrush, this is years and years and years after the original adventures.
Hmm.
It's in the past as of the prologue, right? It's Guybrush
Yeah.
telling his son a story,
Yep.
but it is in the future from the games we've played. And all the games we played, we find out suddenly are canon.
Yeah.
Everything that happened in the previous games had happened. But Guybrush comes back, and you all of a sudden realize an interesting thing. Um, Guybrush comes back to Melee Island, and he talks to the same lighthouse keeper he talks to at the very beginning of the first game.
Hmm.
And the lighthouse
The Outlook, you
keeper,
mean?
the Outlook, yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, yeah,
It's okay.
Outlook, not lighthouse. The Outlook doesn't remember him. Am I right?
I
I know
don't
a lot of people
know.
don't remember him. Now I can't remember if the Outlook remembers him, but
That's
oh,
like at the beginning of the journey, so like I have to like recall real
the
hard.
Outlook, the Outlook does remember him, but vaguely,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
remembers everything differently. So Guybrush is like, you know, he's like, "Hey, it's me, Guybrush 3. I found the secret of Monkey Island." And he was like, "Did you? Did you really? I thought nobody knew the secret of Monkey Island." He was like, "Oh, I fought the pirate LeChuck." And he's like, "Oh, LeChuck's on the island. He's getting together a crew to go find the real secret of Monkey Island." Right? And he's like,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Guybrush is like, "Oh my god, LeChuck is back, but he's evil." And the lighthouse keeper, or the Outlook, is like, "Well, he doesn't have very nice things to say about you either." And he's like, he tried to take over the government. And it's like, well,
He did. He did do. Oh my god, he did try to do that technically.
but it's like, he was like, well, wait, wasn't there a fair election? And it's like, well, yeah, but he tried to marry Elaine. And he was like, well, yeah, but didn't she pretty handily beat him off?
Handily.
And like, as Guybrush Threepwood is going through like this thing, because we have bought into this narrative that LeChuck is the like basic evil villain, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Guybrush Threepwood is the good guy, and that these stakes are high. And from like the very beginning, we get hit with this feeling of like, oh, this really mattered to Guybrush,
Yeah, yeah.
but it didn't matter to anybody else. It
It did,
was
yeah.
it
Yeah.
was just a little blip in the history of the Caribbean.
Yeah, and you could even push that further. In this game, there is a a museum for
Mhm.
pirate culture and pirate memorabilia, and a lot of it references Guybrush's adventures, but it's all wrong. Like nobody remembers anything correctly except for Guybrush and maybe arguably LeChuck, maybe.
Right. Guybrush talks to the pirate leaders, which is like a council of three. It used to be three just white dudes
Hmm.
who we had no idea why they were the leaders, what their deal was, what like credentials they had.
They
And
like
now
grog.
it they liked Grog. And now it is a diverse group of three people who list their accomplishments, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I beat off the Spanish uh I beat off a Spanish galleon while I was sailing into this bay, or
Right.
uh I killed the Captain Dreadbeard in single combat and then led a revolution on a small island." And
Yeah.
then Guybrush is like, "Well, I solved a bunch of puzzles with my wits and random objects I found
Got
lying
this bag
around."
of wooden nickels. I actually don't know if he says that or not, but it's one of my favorite lines.
And what you find is that Guybrush and LeChuck are just two just kind of boring annoyances to everybody else. Like,
Yeah.
pirate history is pirate history, and then there's these two goofballs
Right.
who overstress their own importance and are obsessed with each other.
They especially emphasize like LeChuck's obsession with Guybrush. We later find like his diary. We find LeChuck's diary, and all he talks about is like what his motto should be and how much he hates Guybrush. And then he's like, "I like Guybrush," and then he's like, "Haha, just kidding, I hate him." Like, it's terribly funny.
And like Guybrush, I mean, he eventually like he wants to beat LeChuck to the treasure of Monkey Island or whatever,
Right,
the secret of
secret.
Monkey
Yeah,
Island, and everyone's kind of like, "Why? Why are you still doing this?
yeah.
Like, didn't
Even
you grow out
even
of this?"
even LeChuck's own crew is like, we're not really on the same page as you about the secret. We think you're obsessed with Guybrush
Yeah,
Threepwood." And on Guybrush's end, Elaine is very blasé. Elaine being his wife, and romantic interest in the early Monkey Island games. Even she's like, "Oh, the secret. Okay."
yeah,
No.
she's like, "Oh, have fun."
Yeah. What did you think, real quick? What did you think about Elaine's characterization? She has gone through some
I
some
know.
changes.
I think this was smart in that this is really the only way they could have gone from where she has been previously.
Hmm.
In the previous game, she went from like this no nonsense tough guy who was in this push and pull romance with Guybrush Threepwood. Didn't like that he was always trying to save her.
Yeah.
Um, was the competent one to his incompetence, but was somehow, for some reason, just like desperately in love with him.
Yep.
And then they kind of dulled her down in the later games. Even in Curse of Monkey Island, she spends that whole game
As a stone, yeah,
as
as
a
gold,
statue.
a gold
Yeah, as a
statue, yeah.
gold statue. And granted, in that game, they make it Guybrush's fault. Like,
Yes.
she was doing fine until he bumbled his way into
Yeah.
screwing things up. But then in Escape, then she just sort of becomes like a political figurehead, like a
Right.
political
Yeah.
person, and her and Guybrush are just kind of happily married. And then
Still
Tails,
feisty. Not as
right.
feisty as Kirsch. That was her most, I thought, maybe even too feisty. I'm like, okay. All right, Elaine.
And then in Tails, she's even a little more calmed down. Like, she's on
Yeah.
political crusades, but when she sees Guybrush, she's just like, "Oh, hey, sweetie." So at
Yeah.
this point, that's her character. Is she is a person who has her own interests and her own life,
Yeah.
and she's got a story going on that we don't really get to see.
Yeah.
Um,
Extremely accomplished. Elaine is always extremely accomplished. In this game, she is trying to protect pirates from scurvy by growing these huge lime groves. Like, that is her mission.
yeah,
Scurvy is a serious thing, and she needs to get pirates to like limes. Now, I think lime's a terrible idea, but I just think that's so funny. Out of all the fruits, really? Limes. So that's her thing. And I do honestly, I love Elaine in this game because
right.
she is very supportive, but also like, come on, Guybrush. Like, what? What?
Right, when it comes to Guybrush, right, she's like, she doesn't get the point of adventuring. She's outgrown it. She's got
Yeah.
bigger things on her mind. And then when Guybrush is talking about his obsessions, she's just like, that's nice, honey. And
Yeah.
like, she's supportive,
Yeah.
she loves him, but she just doesn't get it. And I think it is I think, again, that serves as this metaphor towards all the people in our lives, right?
Sure.
Who we keep talking about these same video games over and over, right? Like, that's the thing we've tried to do with this podcast, is trying to talk about more recent games more
Yeah.
often, and trying to broaden out our definitions of, what we like about adventure games, because largely we're a fan community of people who talk about the same 40 games and have been
Yeah.
doing so for 30 years.
Yeah. Yep.
And
I think Elaine speaks for all of us then when she
yeah,
says,
and
"That's nice, honey."
exactly. And so Elaine is all the people who have to deal with us. Like, if Guybrush,
It's our friends, it's our partners, it's our work colleagues. That's nice.
exactly, yeah, Guybrush is like the Don Quixote of the event. Like, he's like, I think I've said that on this podcast before, maybe I said that in a private conversation with you, is Guybrush is this Don Quixote figure where he was
Yes.
obsessed with the romance of pirate stories.
Mhm.
And he wanted to live them, but he didn't quite understand what they were. And also, the things that he was reading in his stories weren't exactly true. And when he
Right.
tries to live them, everything kind of falls apart, because it can't. That isn't how real life works.
Yeah.
And in this, and that's how he is in the first couple games, but in this game, he's like a Don Quixote of adventure games, where he remembers how great it was to go on big adventures and solve puzzles.
Mhm.
But then he starts trying to do it in this world, and he's just kind of annoying to people. And he just kind of seems like a weirdo and a relic.
Yeah. It's great. And yet people are still characters are still, for the most part, kind to him.
Yes.
I think Guybrush is always going to be that kind of goofy character that we don't quite know what the heck to do with.
Right.
It just reminds me of like Curse, when we're trying to get our crew, and we're just annoying them. They don't want any part of our quest. Now we're just being annoying.
Yeah.
So there's always, and Guybrush, don't get me wrong, Guybrush is the likable annoying character. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, you're never going to truly be annoyed with Guybrush. You're more delighted that other characters are annoyed by him.
Yeah. And, I mean, again, very similar to Don Quixote. Like,
Yeah.
I know I'm repeating this metaphor, but that is how I think of Guybrush Threepwood now.
I think it's
a
really good comparison, honestly.
I think he still feels that way very strongly to me, in that it's a little adorable and a little annoying.
Yeah.
And very dangerous.
Yeah. It's got that wholesome nature to it. And that's some of my favorite kind of comedy, is this kind of innocent, wholesome comedy. I would even put like Wayne's World up there, because even though there are some adult jokes, right? For the most part, if you really think about the characters of Wayne and Garth, they could be a lot more edgy. They could be. They could have been written as terrible characters that start fires and like do insane immature things.
Well, that's Beavis and Butthead.
Side. That's Beavis and Butthead. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, Beavis and Butthead is Wayne's World without the sweetness.
Yeah, they're like the end. Even Beavis and Butthead have their own enduring moments, but they are doing essentially crappy things.
Yeah, they are doing. Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's not wholesome humor to me, but Wayne's World is, and Guybrush very much is. I've always been a fan of one-liner humor that's very wholesome, and much to my delight, it really stayed. They really kept it really felt like, I mean, is it the exact same writers and developers, because it's the same humor. It is spot on to the other games.
Yeah, I'm not a person who remembers jokes. Like, I'm not a
I
person
absolutely am. I
who,
will
like,
just start quoting them.
I'm not quotes don't stick in my head. I don't know a lot of, like, street jokes. I don't remember jokes after they've been made. So, do you have a couple? Do you have any examples from this game that you really, really liked?
I think so. I not like verbatim, but I can give you
Mhm.
kind of the structure that I
Okay.
noticed. So,
Yeah.
for example, one of my, and probably one of your favorite things too, is when Guybrush meets Murray in Curse, and he's like, "Can I call you Bob?" And it's just this very
Right.
quick, like, terse thing that he says,
Yeah.
and I don't know why it's funny, but it is. And there's a lot of that is in Return as well. Just the way that Guybrush speaks so tersely and what's the word? Joyously, I guess. When he's speaking
And when he
to
makes
other characters.
a joke, he's not winking or nudging.
Right.
He's
Correct.
just kind of saying, he just kind of, like, he says everything just kind of matter of factly.
Yeah. And a lot of that structure is still in that dialogue of him being like, there's a character named Apple Bob, not related to Bob, Murray Bob,
No, yeah, no
but
relation.
just like, "Hey, Apple Bob, how's it hanging?" And he's like hanging from a post. It's like those very quick, the humor structure
Right.
has carried on from Curse, and I attribute that a lot to Dominic's amazing voice performance as Guybrush, but also the way it's written. It's a very difficult to get tired of these dialogue trees because they are efficiently written and funny at the same time.
Right.
Even when you meet like the locksmith, her name is Lock Smith, and Guybrush is like, "Really?" And she's just like, "Yes." And before you ask, yes, they did. Yes, it really is. And yes, my parents were like, it's just this quick style humor that has carried on, and I just it's really what makes it a Monkey Island game to me.
Right. So what happens after this? Like just really quickly run through the game. Is Guybrush sneaks on board LeChuck's ship, and well, here's another sad thing. So there's a joke that's been running throughout all of Monkey Island where Guybrush Threepwood constantly brags that he can hold his breath for 10 minutes. Whenever
Yep.
anyone asks for his qualifications for anything or asks, like, what special talents he has, he always says, "I can hold my breath for 10
10
minutes."
minutes.
Though in this game, because he's getting older, he can only hold his breath for 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's the smallest, silliest thing, but it's also really sad. And when you notice that is why, it's
Yeah.
really, like, affecting. Like,
It is.
and then, basically he finds out that the secret of Monkey Island is a chest, and he needs 5 special keys scattered across a bunch of islands to open the chest.
Was it 5? Really?
Is it 5?
I thought
Is
it
it
was 3.
Yeah, 5 golden keys.
Okay, dang. I did a lot in that game. It was pleasant, so I guess I didn't notice the amount of what I was doing, but it's a lot.
And another thing this game reckons with is, again, he's Guybrush is sweet. He's got, like, a sweetness to him, but there is a like, the things he's doing are both annoying and destructive.
Yes,
And
they are.
this game shows that. This game shows like, in all the games, you're always stealing stuff from people and freeing people from prison, and like
Yeah.
you're doing all sorts of crazy stuff, breaking things, like,
Mhm.
you're always doing all this insane stuff, and then you don't really see
Semi-ruining people's lives, let's be honest here.
right. And
Look at
then
Wally. Wally got screwed over so many times.
in most cases, they've made references to this in the other games, but like there's little jokes here or there.
Yeah.
But most of the time, you've done something horrible to a person, and they just kind of like storm off or run away or get chased off a screen or whatever. And you never see them again. But
Yeah.
in this game, you're made to sit with the consequences of almost every terrible thing you do. People will confront you about
Yeah.
them. People will talk about how you just ruined their lives. People
Yeah.
will constantly bring up there's a point where you need to make a special mop from a special tree.
That's exactly where my thoughts are. Yep.
Do you want to explain it?
Yeah. Okay. I forgot why we need. We need a mop because we need to get on LeChuck's ship, and the only job available is like a swabby. So we
Mhm.
need a mop. So who do we go to? We go to the kitchen guy in the scum bar, and we're like, we need this mop. What do we do? The guy's like, there is this special mop tree that you need to harvest this wood from. And he's like very serious about his mops.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a magical, amazing. This is kind of like the mop chooses you kind of thing. And we're like, yeah, all right, whatever. We find a map. We get a map to find this mop tree, and it's like Snow White. Like there's animals everywhere. It's a magical mop tree, and all the wildlife is just so magical and enjoying it.
Mm.
And in the next few scenes, it shows Guybrush absolutely destroying the tree for one piece of wood, mind you. You only need like a little piece for the handle. I actually felt this is the only time I felt bad while laughing at the same time. The whole tree is just destroyed, and I mean on fire, destroyed, and the wildlife is crying and hiding, and I'm like, oh my, and he's oblivious to it. He's like
smiling and humming and
He's like, another sacrifice of nature for the greater good. I'm like, oh my
god. Which again just leans into that idea of like he thinks he's doing something. He thinks he's on some quest for goodness when everybody else knows it's just an ego thing.
It is,
and
again,
just like these, nostalgia makes you think that there's something important to all this stuff that you like, and these pursuits that you have. And it's really just your own interest in it. There's nothing inherently important about the things that you love, like that you feel nostalgia towards.
Right. Right.
And so in this instance, people keep bringing it up throughout the game is like, somebody destroyed the old mop tree. Like,
who could have done this? And Elaine's like, she knows who could have done this. And even in the beginning of the game, so the sword master Carla, who is, I believe, she is not in Curse as far as I know, but she's a main character, the sword master Carla. She's now the governor.
Yeah, she's in the first game, she's in the fourth game, and she's in this game. And she started out as the sword master.
She's now in return as the governor. And she's awesome. She's I've always loved Carla as a character. And in the beginning of the game, right away, Guybrush has this camaraderie with her. They start sword fighting, but as only really, really playfully. And then I see a bookshelf. I'm like, hey, can I borrow this book? And she's like, no, you didn't return the last book that you borrowed. And and I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. And she's like, it's just not enough. And so you have to go out of your way now to apologize for something that you've done, which I think is great because Guybrush is not known for apologizing to anybody. So I thought that was great. But yeah, there's a lot of things where Guybrush thinks he's doing something good or innocent, just innocuous.
And he's ruining
people's lives, Even like they brought back very briefly Herman Toothrot as a cameo. We find him again somewhere stranded because Herman's always stranded somewhere, and we don't even help him. We don't even help. We just leave him where he was. So Guybrush, even though it is a very sweet, bumbling character, there is a selfishness to Guybrush across all the games. I think
he does not. He has no self-awareness.
What I love about Monkey Island and what I love about Return is it kept its basic journey, its basic structure. Everything is in chapters. In the first chapter, very commonly, you have to get a crew, you have to get a boat, stuff like that. You are given instructions on what to do. And then you do something different in the next chapter. And the maps are the same. Eventually, when you open up the world, you can travel, via boat and go to different points on your map. And I love that that main format was kept for this, but we just get all different things. So we get different islands, like Terror Island. We get different pirates. We get to see LeChuck's crew in more detail, and they have their own problems.
Right.
The first chapter is the second chapter is on LeChuck's ship, and that's so different to me. Because it plays like a Monkey Island, but it's like we've never been this close to LeChuck. We are on his crew now, speaking with other crew members, and we could go visit him. We could talk to him. We're in disguise, so it's okay. We're in disguise.
And anytime in any other game that you're near LeChuck, it's in like a boss battle kind of sequence,
right.
Which is interesting. They used to have LucasArts games used to have, basically, even though there was no combat,
right.
they were like, story and puzzle games. They basically had the structure of boss battles at the end of every game, where there was some last puzzle or last little series of puzzles you had to solve while something bad was happening to you that was kind of annoying and would reset your progress, at least on some level.
LeChuck's Revenge being maybe the worst offender. I really didn't like the end quote boss battle.
He would
LeChuck's
show up
Revenge.
and just zap you, and you'd suddenly be in somewhere else. And some of the puzzles required you to act really quickly once he entered the room before he zapped you. So
and that's when you saw LeChuck. But in this game, you're taught. I just thought it was so smart.
You're just hanging out with him.
Because how many adventures can you? Let's be honest. Most books have been written, right? We're always taking from previous ideas. How are you going to make this game have its own identity, but be a Monkey Island game with new islands, with characters? This was a really smart way to do it. Let's have him be on LeChuck's crew. Let's find out more about LeChuck. Let's find out who he consorts with. That was brilliant. And that second chapter on the boat, that is my favorite chapter.
You got to meet his whole crew and his whole and it like I was gonna say humanizes, but they're all they're all ghosts and skeletons.
They're all what you could expect, an undead crew to look like. And like we kind of mentioned earlier, they're not quite on board with LeChuck, because LeChuck's whole thing is finding the secret and getting Elaine. That's his whole motive. And the crew is like, we don't want the same things. We're going to the beat of a different drum here, LeChuck. And it's great. I will say I loved the puzzles on the boat. I thought they made sense.
Mm-hmm.
It felt very Monkey Island. This is a Monkey Island game where I did think that the puzzles advanced in difficulty as you went through the chapters. I don't know if you felt that way, but I was feeling it. I was feeling like the puzzles were getting harder.
Yeah, I didn't struggle with really any of the puzzles in the game.
Yeah.
I thought they were all fairly not simple, but easier than previous games.
I struggled with Bermuda, with some of the things on Bermuda.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, even with those struggles, the puzzles are very Monkey Island in nature. It's interesting. Monkey Island has a lot of different kinds of puzzles. In the earlier games, you would have like insult sword fighting, right?
Yeah.
And that's a puzzle in itself. You have to kind of complete that in itself, or you had to. Or in like 4, for example, there was like a swamp puzzle that I'm sure you absolutely hate.
Yeah, I mean, it's not my least favorite puzzle in 4, but yeah,
sure,
that is a very unpopular puzzle.
Like, this game is full of different kinds of interesting puzzles and interesting fetch quests where you don't just find something; you have to almost like learn to do something. And there's always have you noticed there's always a competition aspect in the Monkey Island games? You're always competing with someone, always. And I don't know if that's the piratey nature of it, but in 3 you compete with the crew to get them to go on board with you. And obviously the sword fighting is also competing in its own right. And then in this game you're competing against the queen of this island called Bermuda. where you have to be the best at something to become I won't give too many spoilers, but you're trying to become the Queen of Bermuda.
Yeah. That's another interesting thing. This wasn't really the case in the other games.
Mhm.
Every island had its own feel to it in a lot of the
Sure.
other games. But in this game, each island is themed. It's like heavily themed.
Yes, that's correct.
Each island has a very distinct look, a distinct idea.
Yeah.
And they're all incredibly different from each other. Where the other games, they had their own looks, but they were all just islands. Just regular Caribbean islands with regular Caribbean island stuff on them.
Oh, for sure. I will say that I did, because this game, I think there was a lot going on. Things seemed to move very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I felt more of an attachment for the islands in Curse than I felt for the islands in Return. Because even though they're themed and they have their own identity, and that's very cool, I felt that I wasn't spending too much time. Like on Terror Island, you don't spend that much time there. It's a cool island. It's a cool concept. But I felt like I didn't spend a lot of time there, nor did I meet any characters there, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think this game, if I had to make one complaint about this game, it is that it moves too fast.
It moves very quickly.
Where, the other games, you feel like you spent a good amount of time everywhere, and
Yeah.
you really...
I mean, especially Curse. I'm thinking very specifically about my time on Blood Island and how much I loved it. I didn't even want to leave. Or even a game like Grim Fandango, where, a lot of people love their time on Rubicava, for example. Those games seemed slower paced. This game, I was like going everywhere real fast, like trying to get things done,
Yeah, same. And you're jumping around islands so quickly that you don't really feel... there's no point where you feel tied to an island and like you're really getting the hang of it.
Yeah.
So I think we've talked a good amount about the game and what we like about it.
I agree, and we should probably wrap up talking about it, but I love it so much.
Me too. I really love it. But I think we should think about talking about the ending, because it has a very interesting and some might say controversial ending.
And I'm going to go ahead and say that pretty much all of the Monkey Island games have some kind of Ron Gilbert-esque storytelling that some people like and some people do not like.
Famously, the first game ended with Guybrush and Elaine staring out over fireworks fireworks over Melee Island and talking about what they've learned. And Guybrush says the lesson is never pay more than $20 for a computer game.
Yeah, it's just this very meta, fourth wall breaking ending.
And then the second ending we've talked about on this podcast, that it appears as if this was all like in the imagination of two little boys.
Man, Curse has like the most normal ending.
Yeah, Curse has a normal ending where they just like go off and get married.
Yeah, they get married.
Escape, I don't even remember the ending of Escape, because you're too distracted by the fact that you had to do like a fighting game with a bunch of robot monkeys, which was horrible. Yeah,
that's what I remember too. I don't remember the true ending, but I remember before the ending.
That game has its own villain named like that's like this Australian businessman. It's wild. Tails, I can't remember the ending of that either. I think it's fairly normal. But so Return. This has given people who haven't played the game enough time to turn it off.
Yes, you can turn away now. Turn away now if you must.
So the end of Return to Monkey Island is when you finally find the secret of Monkey Island. It turns out that the whole thing is just like a playground, just like a little amusement park playground that people set up for Guybrush to do again and again and again if he wants. To basically play the secret of Monkey Island.
Yeah. Like
And
everything is construction, everyone's like a cardboard cutout, and it's actually quite impressive. I would be very happy if somebody did that for me. What in the world?
Stan is like, "Hey, lock up when you're done.
Yeah, yeah.
Turn off all the lights," and gives him the keys. And Elaine's like, "Let me know when you're ready to leave."
Right.
Uh, and then you turn out the lights, you lock up, and you leave. And then it cuts to the present.
Right.
And Guybrush is telling the story to his son, and meanwhile Elaine has shown up.
Hmm. And here's where I think this game is very smart. So at that ending, it's obviously it's kind of going back to what we were exposed to in LeChuck's Revenge, where there is an imaginary aspect to these tales, that they're not real, that they're being told or being imagined, or somebody's playing pretend to them. But when Elaine comes onto the screen, she says, "Oh, you're telling that story again. The ending keeps getting stranger and stranger." And I thought that was interesting. And then little Guybrush, I forget Boybrush. I forget his name, or if he has a name. He leaves, and then she says, she kind of whispers to him, "Hey, I found the lost treasure map to Meyer Island. It's going to be a great adventure." And he says, "I'll meet you at the docks." And I think this was maybe the smartest move, because with these two things, with the scenes about the construction, you could theorize that yes, this was Ron Gilbert's vision. This was pretend. Guybrush likes to play pretend, and he always has. And he has a soft spot for these tales, these stories. But at the same time, we had Elaine alluding to, like, why are you changing the ending again? I found this lost treasure map. It's very smart that you can also speculate that maybe he was fudging the ending for Boybrush, or that he does
Right.
keep changing the endings to his tales because maybe he doesn't remember, or he just wants to change him for Boybrush for whatever
To keep his
reason.
son from wanting to go on dangerous adventures and
Yeah.
such.
And meanwhile,
Yeah.
Elaine's like sneakily saying, like, "Hey, I found a treasure map." I think that is
Yeah.
the smartest thing for both people who subscribe to either or
I
of
think
these endings.
that it's open to either is really nice.
Yeah.
I think the read that I have is that it's all pretend, and that when Elaine is like, "I found the secret to my," like, she's trying to motivate him because he's sad thinking about the end of his adventures, right?
Sure.
Like, this story, for as funny and adventurous and silly and whatever it was also a sad story
Yeah.
about, a man desperately trying to relive his glory days, and basically making up details to make
Sure.
it seem more fantastic than it was.
Yeah.
Even in his own retelling, people are looking at the legends he used to, like, the stories he used to tell about himself, as
Mhm.
inconsequential. um it is a story about getting older and not being able to fall back on your achievements
Right.
the way that you thought you could, and again about this nostalgia and it not being as fulfilling as you think it's going to be.
Right.
uh
I also think you can take that, kind of piggybacking about what you're saying, is he is sad, but is he sad because he's not on an adventure right now?
right.
So she could be motivating him either way. You know what I mean? Like, this was a long time ago. Your tales are changing. Things are ambiguous. Let's go on an
Yeah.
adventure. But I think that's the smart way to do it. I honestly, I don't lean strongly either way. I could probably entertain both and be happy with either outcome, you know?
Right. I mean, yeah, we'll see if we ever get a Monkey Island 7
Yeah,
and
I would love
Meyer
that.
Island is there. That'd be fun. But I do really love, I think the point, as it seems to me, that Ron Gilbert is always trying to make with these crazy endings that he goes for, these metatextual endings, is this idea that these are just games and it
Right.
doesn't matter. You still had the time you had with
Yeah.
the thing, and it's still as valuable as you chose to make it.
Yeah.
So if at the very end you find out it's all pretend, that's because it was. And that's okay. It was
Yeah.
still fun, and it was still challenging, and it was still an adventure. And if you want to keep on pretending it's real, like when Elaine whispers to you, I found the map to Meyer Island.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can keep pretending it's all real.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Whatever makes you enjoy it more.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I really don't lean strongly either way. I don't like one ending more than the other in my head. I like both, and I think it's really smart.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's all, I just think it's all very thoughtful and just like an intelligent commentary on what it is to be a creator looking back at your own work and what it is to be a fan engaging in nostalgia. And I think it is incredibly ironic that so many people went nuts about the art style for this game because it didn't match their nostalgia. Yeah. Not even knowing that that is what this game is about. This game is specifically talking about the thing that you are going through. Like the people who needed this game the most are the people who boycotted it.
I know. Oh no.
Those are the people who needed the lessons. Yeah.
Missing the point. Yeah, I do think that Ron Gilbert finally, because in LeChuck's Revenge, I thought that was pretty cut and dry. I think he was making a point about two boys playing pretend, and this was his vision. And I think that he finally kind of got to expand upon his vision in Return. You know what I mean? Because he wasn't on the third game. It was retconned a little bit. So I am glad that I believe that Ron Gilbert's intent was to make it pretend. But also with any art, right? I believe you can assign whatever meaning that you want to it. I painted a weird thing today, and you can assign any meaning you want to it, even though to me it's flowers. But hey, if they look like fish to you, fine, I guess they're fish. But I do think that the artist's intent, I think Ron Gilbert's intent was to make this very wistful, make-believe type of a story.
Right. It's just so... there's something so unique about Ron Gilbert being able to look us in the face with this game and both insult us and tell us he loves us at the exact same time.
He's good at that, isn't he?
He's just like, I love you and the things you love, you fucking obsessive weirdos. That is like, that seems to be what he's saying. He's saying both at the same time, and he's like, and also kind of saying both things in a mirror, right? Like it's, I have a real deep fondness and affection for this game. I don't think it's a game that I'm going to replay. I don't know about you. I don't think it's a game I'm going to replay like every couple years the way I do the classics.
I think I will. But the only reason I think I will is because I did it for this and loved it again. Right. So I could see myself doing it in a couple years and replaying it.
I think the reason I wouldn't is because it's such a deeper experience than those. Those are kind of just like fun popcorny experiences. While this one has like a deeper meaning, and I don't want to lose the effect it's had on me by watering it down.
Yeah.
You know, sort of like my favorite book in the entire world is Robert Piercing's Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. And it meant a whole lot to me as a young teen. And I didn't read that book again for 20 years. Like I just read it this past year again. Because I didn't want to lose that meaning.
Sure.
By watering it down, by just having it become something that I could just quote and say over and over again the way that I can. Like I can watch Star Wars 1,000 times because I'm not losing anything. Right. That movie's not good. It's just great. You know what I
mean? Yeah, for sure.
And so that's the thing about this. Like this game is great.
Yeah.
And good. I'm sorry. I was using great as the pejorative one, right?
Oh my god.
This game is good. Like this game is just solidly a great piece of art, and I think I want to play it again in maybe 5 or 10 years and feel those feelings again, rather than just play it every year and be able to quote it.
Yeah, for sure. And plus I think I will play it again in a few years, but I do have my mainstays that I do play every few years or so. Grim Fandango, Curse, the Dagger of Amon-Ra.
I do Curse. Yeah, I do Sam and Max.
Yeah. Sam and Max I don't do as often because as we spoke about in a few episodes ago, it does tend to aggravate me a little bit.
Yeah.
Even though I do also have a great fondness for Sam and Max, I just get a little aggravated with the backtracking.
And I'll do a game that I always want to play again, but I'm trying to wait for my memory to disperse. Is Return of the Return of the Obra Dinn.
Oh yeah, I know you. I know you love that game. Oh my gosh!
I just need my memory to wipe over time.
Are we gonna have to talk about that game?
Oh, definitely.
Because I can't beat that game for shit. I am terrible at it. I really am that bad at it. Yeah.
Ooh, we'll have to talk about Return to Obra Dinn sometime. But so that was I think all our thoughts on. Well, we probably have a million more, but that's the thoughts we're giving you today on Return to Monkey Island. If you haven't played it, and you have played the other Monkey Island games, go back and check this game out. It is absolutely worth your time. If you haven't played the other Monkey Island games, I still think this one might be worth your time because it is just so sweet and so fun.
It is fun. It is its own adventure. I think it would help if you knew some stuff about Monkey Island, but it is its own thing.
Right. Roses, you want to say goodbye? Want to start saying goodbye to everybody?
That's so I want to say goodbye. I want to keep talking about Monkey Island.
No, you guys stop podcasting first. No, you stop podcasting first.
Wait, Matt, you want to hear a joke?
Sure.
Okay, let's do a knock-knock joke, but you start.
I start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, knock knock.
Who's there?
Matt. Matt's here.
No, that was the joke, is that you started. The funny joke.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Well,
all right, everybody. Well, email us at @gmail.com. We're gearing up actually for another Q&A episode really soon. So if you want to get your questions in for the next Q&A, do it now. Send those emails right now. You probably won't have time after the next episode.
I'm excited
to get them in time. Yeah, me too.
I'm excited. I like getting questions because they always lead to suggestions that I mean, I'm still thinking about the last tour. I'm still thinking about it in my brain.
We got some good questions this time too, so I'm
Great.
excited to dig in.
Awesome.
Anything else you want to say before we go?
I'm making a piece of art out of pistachio shells, and I ate so many, and it was worth it. And that's the end.
Well, sometimes you have to eat so many pistachio shells or so many pistachios to make your art because while podcast is art, the other thing that we know is
art is suffer. I really did eat a lot though.